Thank you for tuning in to Reviving Humanity. Today's episode, How White Supremacy Has Divided Black America, is going to be a deep topic. But you know what? This is a topic that has been held off way too long. We in the community as Blacks and whites in America have not truly come together to have the conversations that need to be had. And it is time. I am hoping that you who are listening understand that this is not an attack, but an acknowledgement, as that we need to wake up and to really start discussing the elephants in the room so that we can finally move forward together. Now, you may be wondering, how has white supremacy divided Black America? Before I dive deeper into the title of today's episode, I need to address the elephants that exist in every room that you and I step into. There are conversations that we have with one another as a society that do not address the boisterous ignorance that tramples inside of our thoughts. The history of the successes of this country are not a glamorous feat, yet a colorless one. We breathe in the land of the free, yet diversity is hidden underneath its own superiority. Superiority which does not exist physically, but mentally. It is time we begin to address, as I said, the elephants in the room. Time to stop outrunning our history and accept gracefully, conceding to our own ignorance as we color this world fearless of diversity. You and me, a rainbow uniquely. Now, what do I mean when I say elephants? What are these elephants that I am speaking of in the rooms? It is the white elephant which chooses to erase the past by ignoring it, and the black elephant which recognizes the past, yet cannot forgive it. The yin and the yang, tethered, yet divided by color. We sit in rooms with one another, not addressing the true uncomfortability of our history, of our present, and it is time that we address it. There were traumatic events that happened on our timeline. Just because you were born in the 90s does not mean that slavery did not bleed over into your timeline. Just because you were born in the 2000s does not mean that the Jim Crow laws does not bleed over into your timeline. It is here. It is a lingering ghost that is screaming for us to confront it, but we don't. Not amongst those that we need to have these conversations with. We need to have these conversations amongst one another. Yet we choose to remain divided because of our history, because of our present. But how do we start to come together so that we can stop dividing ourselves and really begin to move forward as a nation? It's time that we acknowledge that when we cannot exercise the First Amendment, freedom of speech, the freedom of speech without censorship, when books are written by Black authors and banned from schools, banned from universities, banned from libraries, how can we not see that our country is breaking its own laws? And you may have heard, or you may feel, or you may feel and agree, but what is your agreement associated with? Is it associated with the fear that your children are made to feel bad for being white? When you censor someone's voice, you take away that respect of that person. When you censor someone's voice due to your own fear of how the world may perceive you, how is that holy? Those of you who attend church regularly, and I'm not going to get into the topic of church on this episode, don't worry, not today, but those of you who censor voices due to your own fear Maybe it's time that you look in the mirror and address what it is that you may be ashamed of. Perhaps you are ashamed of your own past or your ancestors' history. It is time that we start facing so that we can stop censoring one another, so that we can stop dividing ourselves and truly come together and heal. As many of you know, an artist puts their pain in their work. They put pain into their lyrics. They put pain into their poem, pain into their art. That pain is real, and it deserves to be heard. It deserves to be heard so that the next generation will not continue to make the same mistakes that we have been making in the footsteps of our own ancestors. So now that we've got those elephants out of the way, the elephants, now that I have addressed the elephants in the room, it is time that we dig deeper into that. Dig deeper into how you could be carrying that elephant on your shoulders into every room that you step into and not even know it. There are two sides to this. Those who ignorantly keep the superiority mindset alive, and those who play the game to survive. Which one do you fall into? Which category do you think you might fall into? Come on, it's really time that we start thinking outside of social media and all of the cat videos, outside of social media and all of the dog videos. It is time that we have real discussions with one another and within ourselves. Now let's talk about those of us playing the game to survive, giving into the superiority complex, giving it power by code switching, giving it power with colorism, and even giving it power with segregation within our own culture. Yes, I am talking to my people. I am talking to my brothers and sisters listening, okay? I am talking to you. Giving it power. Putting a name, putting color to music, putting color to fashion, a style, putting color to sports, color to music, even color to food. I have heard people within my own community be teased for the food that they eat. For the food that they eat. And no, I am not talking about watermelon and fried chicken. I am talking about having the diversity, being a Black person, having the freedom to be diverse as a Black person, to be able to go into the lunch space, to go into the cafeteria and to pull out a Mediterranean salad and to not be judged, to not have their Black card taken away from them. Yes, we are doing this. We have allowed the superiority mindset, that superiority complex, to divide us within our own culture. Now, the thing is, when I talk about how we have segregated ourselves within the Black community, this is real. I know some of you listening may, you have your routine, you have your friends, you have your colleagues, whatever it may be. And you may feel like, well, you know what, I'm not segregated. But what is that non-segregation based off of? What do you have to do in order to fit in order to be considered a brother, a sister? What do you have to do, okay? How do you have to dress in order to be seen as a Black person within your own community? What do you have to listen to? What music must you listen to in order to be given the fist pump? We are doing this and we are not paying attention to our own actions. When you think about Africa, the continent of Africa, inside of Africa sits 54 countries. And within those 54 countries, inside of Africa, lies cities, towns, tribes. Before Before the transatlantic slave trade, Africa was still large in size, the continent. And within Africa, that continent was diversity of African people, of Black people. But we do not learn much about that diversity. We only learn of what we here in the U.S. maybe see in the media, right? What we see when we look up on YouTube, what we see when we do a Google search, okay? Africa is more than just Egypt. Africa is more than just South Africa, Nigeria. There is diversity. There has always been diversity, and it was beautiful. But why is it that here in America, in order to be Black, in order to be accepted, you must fall in line? There is only one definition of Black. Why do we deny ourselves diversity within our own culture? And to still be able to see one another and to accept one another and to love one another. I spoke on earlier when I began this episode that slavery, the Jim Crow laws, that they bled into our timelines. If you are alive on this planet today, if you were born in America, if you are a citizen, if you are still here as a Black person, we share a unique bond. We share something. Yet when we see each other, we walk past each other without even acknowledging that bond. I see other cultures, so many other cultures, as I have traveled, in the U.S. I have not done my world traveling yet, but in the U.S. I have. And I have seen how different cultures come together, how they stick together. Why is it that we do not do this? Knowing our history, knowing what our ancestors, how resilient they were, knowing of our history, of all of the marches, of all of the protests, of all of the Jim Crow laws. Why do we ignore our connection to one another? As I said, I have traveled to many states in the U.S. Every place is a little different, but what does not change is that acknowledgement. I lived briefly in Atlanta, and I will say that there are, what I can recall now, which I was not able to recall at the time, but there is this sort of this brotherhood, this sisterhood, a little. I got a taste of it when I wasn't being, when someone wasn't trying to throw down with me at the grocery store, okay? I had people trying to throw down with me at the grocery store, right? And, maybe I was trying to throw down with them too, okay? But listen, instead of fighting one another, why can't we come together and support one another? Really see one another, no matter your diversity within who you are as a human being, but wearing that color, having that skin tone. Why can't we see one another, that this is your brother, this is your sister? No matter if they are LGBTQ plus IA or not, no matter if they are Buddhist or not, no matter whatever they believe, whomever they are, why do we allow these things to still divide us and separate us? We need to be coming together. We need to be standing strong, acknowledging our past so that we can move forward from it. When I talk about the Jim Crow laws, those of you who do your research, you will know that the Jim Crow laws ended in the 1960s. My mother was born in 1964, which means that my grandmother, they were from the North. My grandmother was alive and well during the Jim Crow laws. I was born in the 80s. The Jim Crow laws, that mindset, it bleeds over. It has not been addressed. How can you acknowledge the behavior of your ancestors, how that behavior spills over into your own blood, into your own DNA. How can you acknowledge that? Let me rephrase this. The Jim Crow laws have bled over into our timeline. As I have mentioned before, those who have ancestors who put up those signs, whites and coloreds only, water fountains, restrooms, movie theaters, diners. You don't think that behavior, that mindset, if not addressed, does not bleed over into your own existence? It is being ignored. No, you are not putting up signs anymore. But that mindset, having that superiority mindset and believing that you are dominant over one race. Let me tell you, no race is dominant over the other. We all need each other. And I say no race is dominant, although we all know as a Black person, as an African person, that our melatonin, our skin, that we have certain abilities that have helped us to be able to withstand the hot temperatures of the burning sun. But we still need to acknowledge that we are all unique. We are all equal, that there is not one race superior to the other. As long as we continue with a superiority mindset, our ignorance will spill over to the next generation, to the next, and so on and so on. And we will still be talking about racism in the year 3000. How many of you want to continue talking about racism in the year 3000? I say it's time that we move forward from this so that we can finally grow and focus our attention on what's really happening to our planet. Be able to finally heal one another from our diseases. But how can we do this? How can we do this when we have conversations with our colleagues, with our friends, with our boyfriends, our girlfriends, our mistresses, our whatevers, our lovers? How can we move forward when we do not address these elephants that exist? The history of our past, which plays on repeat, just in different formats. Keeping the lie alive. As I said, the elephant which cannot forgive the past, and the elephant which ignorantly keeps the past alive in the present. How can we move forward, stuck in the past, when we continue to allow the mistakes of our ancestors to linger on in our own shadows? For all that Black people have been through in this country, as I said, slavery in this country, which cannot be compared. Slavery in this country, the Jim Crow laws, we should be honored. Yet instead, it is white supremacy that is honored in this country for its cruelty. Do you not see the mind fuck in that? Thinking, excuse my French. It is time that we as Black people collectively see ourselves for who we truly are. Branch out, explore this country. As I know, I get it. The South is comfortable. It's where the majority of us linger together, right? It's where we collect together. It's comfortable. It's what we know. Okay. We don't know anything about the North. We don't know anything about Montana. We don't know anything about Iowa. We are going to stay in Mississippi. We are going to stay in Alabama. We are going to stay in Georgia. It is time that we branch out and understand that this country, that this is our country. We were born here. This is our country. And I just want to mention something really briefly. I was having a conversation with a coworker of mine, and this person, not to call them out, I don't think that they did this intentionally, but this is a way to show how we are thinking, how we are not addressing our own thoughts. So I was having a conversation discussing things happening within the continent of Africa. And my coworker, they say, I am so sorry to hear about what is going on in your country. referring to the continent of Africa. Now, why is America? I was born in America. Why is America not my country? We don't realize this, us as blacks and whites. We don't realize this, but a lot of us have this view where we as black people, we may say, yeah, this is my country. I was born here. I am an American. But do we really believe that this is our country? Do we really believe that? Some of us, I imagine that we really do. We know, yes, this is our country. But there are a lot of us, like this coworker I was explaining about, who believe for some reason, still, as I said, it bleeds over into our timeline, right? That thinking is bleeding over into our timeline, believing that this is not truly our country, that I come from Africa. When I have ancestors from my mother's side of the family who were Native American, how do I know that I am not both from America and from Africa? We don't know. We don't really get to, our history has been hidden. It has been erased. And there is no empathy for that. No understanding for that. We just want to ignore it so that it will disappear. Ignore our actions in hopes that they will somehow disappear in our minds. Ignore the fact that racism exists, pretending that it has disappeared, believing that everything is okay, while the KKK are mingled down the street at McDonald's, ordering pancakes and biscuits, planning their attacks for the day. Things are still happening. This ignorance is large. This ignorance is alive at large. We have to start having these conversations, put ourselves in our ancestors' shoes as we say that slavery does not affect me. The history of slavery does not bother me. It does not upset me. I just want to move on and forget it, and you should move on and forget it too. Well, I want to share something else with you. I was at the movie theater years ago when 12 Years a Slave aired. Okay, not aired because it wasn't live, but when it was in theaters, okay, I saw it. I saw 12 Years a Slave with my mother at the movie theater. Tell me why. I have no idea what overcame me, but I was sitting there. There was this scene where the woman, she just wanted some soap, okay? She just wanted to clean her body. And the scene that followed, her disobedience for getting said soap, had me hysterical. Seeing her being whipped like that, something just overcame me, and I wept. I mean, I was boo-hooing, embarrassed, boo-hooing in the theater, and my mom is looking at me like, what the hell is wrong with you? Shaking her head like she does not get it, okay? Sometimes we need to feel what our ancestors have been through to see if there is trauma, if there could be trauma lingering within our own DNA. Put ourselves in our ancestors' shoes to see if there is still healing that needs to be worked through. While we tell ourselves and try to ignore the history as it plays on repeat in different formats right in front of us. But now we are divided, segregated within our own community. Us, as Black people, segregated based off of colorism, based off of things like code switching, based off of the music that we listen to, the food that we eat. We have to erase that ignorance from our mind, that ignorance from our thinking that in order to be Black, you must fit into this mold. And then there are those of us who ignorantly try to deny our own culture, right? Feeding into that superiority mindset, believing and actually partaking in colorism, bleaching our skin, believing that if my skin is lighter, I will get those opportunities. I will get that boyfriend. I will get that job, that promotion, whatever. It is your spirit that needs to be worked on, that needs to be brightened, not the complexion of your skin. The complexion of your skin is gorgeous. It is beautiful. It shines. It glimmers. Stop falling for the media's insecurities, believing that the blackness of your skin is not desirable. I have believed this. Being a Black woman, we face the most challenges. And then add gay to that, well, good luck with that, right? But being a Black woman, I have felt the most disrespected, the most unappreciated, the most unseen, yet I know that I am the most powerful sometimes in almost every room that I walk into because of all that I have to endure. And every day I continue to wake up knowing the life that I live, knowing the battles that I will have to face for the day. But why do we always have to be strong? Why can't we sometimes just be and relax and just exist? We always have to fight for something, prove something. Going back into those who play the game to survive, those who participate in colorism by bleaching their skin. I hope that whoever you are that's listening, that whatever skin tone you may have as a Black person, I hope that you hear this, that you hear it is a mind game. The only reason that thought has any power is because you give it power. Please hear me when I say you are perfect the way you were built, the way that you were constructed. You are perfect as you are. You do not need to change your culture, to change your identity, and to Europeanize it in order to be beautiful. You already have all of the tools within you. You just have to believe it. It is your mind. The mind is the key to freedom. The key to freedom is within us all. It is in your mind. Believe and know that you have everything. No matter what complexion you are, you do not have to change it. You do not have to Europeanize it in order to be accepted. Now I get it. People feel like, well, when I have lightened my skin, I have gotten more attention. Well, that is because you are falling for the matrix of this world. You are falling for a world that is ignorant, that does not know how to look past the surface, past what it has been taught, to be able to choose, to be able to see more than just what we are taught that beauty is. Beauty is not defined. It is everywhere around us. Yet we are taught that only one type of beauty is beautiful, and that is a lie. You have to break yourself out of that programmed thinking. Because I believed it at once. I looked in the mirror and I thought that my skin complexion was too dark. Why am I at 9 years old thinking that my skin complexion is too dark? Because it bleeds over, as I said, into our timeline. It bleeds over into our timeline. It is true. You have to see how those thoughts carry, how suppressing one culture, how that carries over from timeline to timeline to timeline. But we have to get control of that. And some of us, I see that you are getting control of that, like Miss Akila Davis. I was so proud to see, she's a reporter. I was so proud to see her bare herself and show her dreads and say, this is how you will see me. An African beauty, a Black beauty. You will see me with my dreads. I will no longer Europeanize myself for you. We have the power. Every single one of us has the power to break free, to be an example within our community, within our family, to break free from that superiority mindset. And when it comes to code switching, okay, why do we have to code switch? We're falling for that too. We feel like we have to be European in front of white people, but we can be African in front of blacks. We should not have to have, we as black people should not have to develop multiple personalities in order to exist in the land of the free. There's a difference in being proper and being able to speak and being able to enunciate your words and then having to adapt another way of speaking, another culture into your own voice. You can still speak properly and still be black. You can enunciate your words without having to code switch. We should not have to do this. And as long as we continue to do this, as long as we continue to fall for these things, we will continue to feed the superiority mindset. We should not have to alter our culture in order to be the land of the free. I want to talk about the demographics for a minute because, listen, we have got to address the demographics, okay? As I said, we have been divided. We have been divided. The superiority mindset, this supremacy that lingers within this country, it keeps us. Where does it keep us? It keeps us where it wants to keep us. It is time that we expand. As black business owners, it is time that we expand and explore this country, just as other cultures have been able to do in this country. I want to read some demographics to you. What do you guess that the demographics in Montana for a black or African American person would be? I'm going to give you like 3 seconds just to guess. 1, 2, 3. The demographics are 0.58% black. That's Montana. I want you to look up Montana if you haven't done so. It is gorgeous. It is a beautiful place. Why are we not living that life more? Exploring that type of life for ourselves instead of just congregating in the South. As I said, I have nothing against the South. I think that community is wonderful, but it is important as a human being that we explore, that we teach ourselves something new. I'm in Utah right now. Can you guess what the demographics are for Black or African American people in Utah? 1.19%. Now, I'm not going to name off all of the demographics. You all can do your research, but my point in saying this is that we stay in the South, New York City, and California. Okay, the East Coast. Why haven't we really branched out to the North and to the West? Not really. Mississippi. Can you guess what the demographics in Mississippi are? Now, I was surprised. I thought the number would be much higher, but it's 37.53% Black or African American. 37.53%. And the capital, Jackson, Mississippi, is, can I get a ring, 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 ring? It is 78%. 78% Black or African American. So my whole point in this is just saying that it is important that we start to explore, at least explore, go travel, and you as a Black business owner, expand. If you have the opportunity to expand that business, bring it so that we can cover every corner of the United States. Okay. It is important that we don't let that supremacy, that white superiority, that superiority mindset keep us afraid because of the demographics. I was afraid myself to come out to Utah. I didn't know anything about it except for the Mormonism. That is all that I knew. I did not know anything else. And I have too experienced some superiority. I experience that everywhere I go. That is just what I want to address, that it is important that we expand, we explore, and believe and know that this is our country. This is our country. We have to start thinking for ourselves and seeing the beauty of diversity around us. So how can we acknowledge our participation in keeping the superiority complex, keeping that mindset alive? Call it by its name, face it, have the compassion and the competence to understand that just because you may not experience colorism, racism, prejudice, etc., does not mean it doesn't exist in someone else's life. Stop running from the past and face it. To our white friends listening, allow your colleagues, those in your community, to express our diversity without prejudice. When you have the power to be an example, to be a CEO, to promote equality, be that example of unity. Allow your colleagues to express our pain through art without prejudice. The art that shines through our skin, the hips that move with that skin, the hair that illuminates from that skin, the lips that glow with that skin. Let's create a world that is not superiority-based, dependent on inferiority, but that acknowledges boisterously the beauty of all of our diversity, the intelligence, creativity, which adds to this planet. Stand up to superiority instead of sitting silently, benefiting off of a lie. And to my people of color, my brothers and sisters, I want you to march through those doors, march into those rooms, no matter if you are one out of 200 plus. Be proud of your skin, proud of the food that you eat, the books that you read, the music that you listen to. Be bold enough not to fit in, not to blend in, fierce enough to let your culture roar through your skin. Let's stop this divide. Let's stop putting color to everything. Have these conversations when you have your relationships, when you are in that multiracial relationship. Have these conversations. Be empathetic enough to listen, to know that you are talking to someone who is carrying with inside of them years, centuries of trauma. Have that compassion and understanding to see, how do we move forward? How do I be a support to you? How do I see you? How do I stop censoring your voice? How do I allow myself to hear you? Let's really come together. It is so important. I really want us to start having these conversations so that that awkwardness fades. So that the uncomfortability fades, so that we can truly be a family here. Because as long as our house is not in order, we will continue to follow in the same footsteps of our ancestors. Let's be the example of unity together within this country and within our own community. I hope that I was able to say something in this episode that resonated with you, that you can take away and apply within your own life. Until then, I want you to stay safe, stay educated, and get to know yourself. Take care.